today. I'm actually presenting with my colleague Gina Norman, who I'll introduce shortly, on the traditional lands of the Kaurna people, and we respect their spiritual relationship with this beautiful country as well. From RAA's point of view, we're actually really proud to have recently received conditional approval of our first Reconciliation Action Plan, and we're really excited to be exploring new opportunities and policies, particularly around cultural and nature-based tourism experiences in the state. So we're also keen to hear from participants today in this area as well. We're really sorry that we couldn't host this event in person, which really does create for fantastic networking opportunities, but in the current environment, we felt this was the best and safest decision. And actually the virtual format has enabled more people to participate, so there is a bit of an upside. This is our 7th regional forum, and there's still a few more to come in the lead up to the state election. They're designed to be an opportunity, obviously, to talk about the challenges, of which there are many, but also to start talking about the opportunities and to connect you directly to your various political representatives and air some of your ideas and challenges directly with them. It's also, we really want to talk about the opportunities that lay ahead too, and we can talk about some of the work that we're doing in this space from a distribution point of view as well. We are recording the webinar today so that you can share the link with your colleagues after the event as well. A couple of suggestions to set up your viewing in gallery mode, which can be found in the top right-hand corner. And as I said, reminder to stay on mute when you're not speaking, and of course be respectful of other speeches so that we can other speakers so that we can have an open and constructive discussion. We're going to introduce the speakers shortly, but we really want to maximise your time for question and answers and comments too. So like Talkback Radio, questions posed as comments are also okay because it's about sharing your feedback. So a really good idea is to use the raise hand function, not the in-person raise hand, but in the Zoom function so that we can see you and we'll invite you to join the discussion. What's even better is if when you think of something, a comment or a question, please use the Zoom chat function because you can type it in there as soon as you think of it and I'll come straight to it when we get to the Q&A. Fortunately, we've had really great feedback and questions submitted already. So once we've finished hearing from the speakers, we'll start with some of those to warm the crowd up. We've got 5 speakers. Sean de Bruin, I'll get Sean to give us a wave, Chief Executive of TIC SA. Gina Norman, who's our General Manager of Travel and Distribution here at RAA. Mick McBride, MP, who is your member for MacKillop, giving us a wave. The Honourable Zoe Beddison, the Shadow Minister for Trade, Tourism Investment, also giving us a wave. Resplendent, she's not working for RAA, but she's very on brand and bright and colourful. And a couple of other people to acknowledge too that are hopefully on the call. And if you're there and I haven't someone else that I should acknowledge, please put your hand up. But Biddy Sherling, who's the Regional Manager for the Limestone Coast Tourism. Also, I can see the Honourable Claire Scriven, who is the Shadow Minister for Regional Development, giving us a wave. I can see you at the top of my screen. And Mark Brays as well, who's the Labor candidate for MacKillop. So that's great, thank you, I can see you. So once we throw some questions and comments to Zoe, she can bring you into the conversation where appropriate. From our side, we've also got Charles Mountain. Charles, give us a wave. I can see you on our screen, a familiar face as well. Charles leads our safety and infrastructure team, and given the strong connection between roads and tourism and the work that he does in regional road assessments and advocacy, any questions we can throw to him as well if useful. So with that, I will throw to our first speaker, Sean de Bruin, CEO, familiar face, no doubt. Sean has deep and varied tourism and business experience, particularly in relationship management, business planning, experience development, which often comes up a lot today. So we can capitalise on your experience there, as well as marketing, distribution, and obviously the government engagement and strategic management for 20 years. Sean, I'll throw to you.
Thanks very much, Emily. Thanks very much to RAA. Thank you, Nick, for having me here this morning, and Zoe and other candidates that are online. We're really grateful to have this conversation about tourism policy moving forward and funding priorities for those tourism policies as we move into a state election. And obviously there will be a newly elected government and potentially new ministers and new opportunities to deliver outcomes for our industry. I'm just going to set my stopwatch so that I don't go over 3 minutes. I've got a few slides. The first one here is a slide that represents our quarterly business survey. So every quarter we do a business survey of our members. The last quarter was October, November, December. We had 370 businesses provide extensive information about business activity over the last 3 months of last year. You can see there, obviously, it's been a really challenging period since the bushfires in 2019. But most recently, the last quarter of last year was incredibly challenging for so many businesses. And in our sector, we were certainly being buffeted a lot by changes that were being put in place by government to keep us all safe and deliver a exceptional health outcome. Ultimately, though, what that's meant is that there's a lot of tourism businesses that are under stress. You can see this slide here talks to the different visitor segments that businesses are receiving, from conferences and business meetings, business activity generally in terms of travel for business, festivals and events, and holiday and leisure. The green highlights a decline, purple is static, and grey is an increase in activity. Overwhelmingly, you can see there that the green is dominating what's going on in the business space at the moment. I'll just give you a couple of numbers from that survey. 64% of the 370 respondents, remembering it's a very strong quantity of number of businesses, said that they're expecting significant downturn in their business in 2022. 42% said that they were reducing staff and operation levels. 75%, and this is the key issue we believe, reported low consumer confidence. Not only is their business confidence an issue, but obviously consumer confidence is an issue. And anecdotally, it feels like some of that is starting to come back, but it's been incredibly challenging. In the 1 minute I've got left, I wanted to just quickly talk to our election agenda, the tourism industry recovery agenda. We've distributed this far and wide to all political parties. We've got 5 key priorities. Marketing is number 1 for our members. They want to see a strong level of investment from state government in marketing. Restart and reinvestment, helping businesses to reinvest in their future prosperity, is a key element that we believe needs to be committed to by incoming state government. Partnerships, collaboration, it's all about partnerships. At the end of the day, you get partnerships through collaboration, and partnerships are about getting things done. Business capability is an incredibly important area, and that talks to careers in tourism, skills, but also that entrepreneurial small business and helping them be more capable in their business activities on a day-to-day basis. Anyway, that's my 3 minutes. I'll throw back to you. Thanks very much, Emily.
Thank you very much, Sean. It really, the priorities have been, we've had a lot of very similar feedback through our regional forum. So it would be great for us to talk more specifically about how these apply to the electorate once we get to the discussion. So thank you for that. I'll now introduce our next speaker, Gina Norman, who, as I said, is General Manager of Travel and Distribution here at REA. Gina also has more than 20 years experience in tourism, customer service and retail industries, an incredibly strong advocate for the industry and committed not just to the viability, but to the growth of the sector, particularly coming out of COVID. So I'll hand the reins over to Gina.
Thanks, Emily, and thank you, Sean. Welcome, everyone. Some of the people here today will know and be working with REA through our travel side of the organisation, and others might be surprised to know that REA Travel is one of the longest running travel agencies in the state. We started in October 1958. And so for more than 60 years, we've been working with and supporting tourism operators just like yourselves. The last 2 years have been incredibly tough for the industry, and today is about giving you the opportunity to ask your local politicians about what supports there are for tourism in your region and what the pathway to recovery looks like for your business. At REA, we want to see the tourism sector return to the vibrant and growing sector it is known for being. That's why we've partnered with TechSA to amplify our voice and support tourism businesses and operators like you to grow the visitor economy in South Australia. To be travel ready, we need to make it easy and safe for people to travel around South Australia. Despite COVID-19, strong intrastate travel has meant some regions have experienced really strong activity. However, this has revealed certain infrastructure problems in regional South Australia. That's why when the government introduced the Local Government Infrastructure Partnership Program, we welcomed it, and now we want it to continue. We want to see the next state government commit to an ongoing regional tourism grant program to support upgrades to town centres and local infrastructure. And we also recognise that roads need to be safe and well maintained so people can get to your fabulous tourist destinations. This is why we're calling for a 4-year road maintenance fund with a minimum value of $600 million to be put towards transparent road maintenance. Roads do support tourism, and in the MacKillop electorate, we are advocating for the installation of additional overtaking lanes along the Riddoch Highway and Glenelg River Road. We're also calling for the staged duplication of the Dukes Highway by 2050. Another key outcome to mention is the government's recent announcement of a draft, the 2022-2032 cycling strategy for SA. We have called for a state cycling strategy, and we're pleased with the government's recent commitment to develop this. As Emily mentioned, Charles Mountain is on the call today, so if you want to have any conversations about these projects in more detail, he's available. Improving access via infrastructure is only one piece of the puzzle. Updating, repairing and extending visitor signage is a priority across all regions, as is improvements to visitor infrastructure and improved rest facilities. Lastly, we know the key to the recovery of the tourism sector is a skilled workforce. And with the reopening of the international borders, the challenge will be scaling up a skilled workforce in the time needed to meet the incoming demand. In an RAA survey, operators identified recruiting and retaining staff as the #1 barrier to growing their business. Lack of international workers, along with job security, housing supply, adequate training and upskilling are just some of the issues driving the growing capacity constraints. It's clear that issues driving skill shortages are multifaceted and require a whole of government response. We are calling for a state strategy with specific regional tourism employment plans to respond to growing skill shortages and to rebuild operator capacity. This is vital so that the sector can be more sustainable and resilient into the future. I know it has been and continues to be extremely tough for you as tourism operators. What has shone through is the incredible resilience of the industry and those working in it. And I really look forward to working with you and supporting you to help grow the visitor economy.
Thank you, Gina. It feels like we're here in the studio and we're going to cross back to people live on the ground. So as we do that, I think what we're all picking up on is that we're really looking forward to that transition from COVID ready to travel ready. So thanks, Gina, for that overview. So we'd now like to welcome Nick McBride, MP, the member for MacKillop, into the conversation. Nick was elected to the South Australian Parliament in 2018, and before entering politics was a local grazier and has a background in boiler making. For those of you on the call, you probably know him well, and that he served as a board member of local agribusiness and not-for-profit organisations and used his platform to advocate for greater infrastructure funding, mobile coverage and drainage networks in the region. And certainly we hear him a lot in the media advocating strongly for the community through the COVID period. So he's committed to seeking support for regional business and families to drive development and jobs in the southeast. So we'll welcome Nick McBride.
Thank you, Emily. And first of all, I just acknowledge my fellow parliamentary colleagues, Honourable Zoe Bettison and the Honourable Claire Scriven. Also just acknowledging Gina Norman and Sean De Bruin, the CEO Tourism Industry Council of SA, and thanks to the TIC for hosting this event, and also just acknowledging Mayor Erica Vickery, who also is head of the LGA Limestone Coast as well. I noticed she's one of our participants. A very, very interesting topic, and I'm glad this is taking place because there's nothing more sure that this sector needs to recover, and it's a very important sector for the Limestone Coast, not just MacKillop. Regional tourism is a significant economic contributor for this state and the regions. Our government and the SA Tourism Commissions are focused on returning to a record high of $8.1 billion to the visitor economy. COVID has hit this Limestone Coast area really hard with the border restrictions. The absence of interstate travellers and overseas travellers has been noted and needs to recover to return the sector to its heydays and economic recovery that's required. Government support and stimulus is important, and heard this loud and clear from operators over the last 2 years. Keen to leverage and grow visitations and overnight stays in the regions, and particularly Limestone Coast. The government does have an SA regional visitor strategy and has identified that visitor spend on the Limestone Coast is worth $370 million. And there's more than 2,100 direct jobs and 900 indirect jobs associated. Our region has many assets, natural assets these are: rugged and beautiful coastline, World Heritage listed caves, red gum landscape, coastal lakes, unique sinkholes and caves, extensive national park network, the Bull Lagoon wetlands. These opportunities have been taken up and included with bike trails, eco experiences and glamping. The region's also known for its food and wine experiences delivered by the Coonawarra and various areas around Rattenbully, Padthaway and Mount Benson. It also has an art scene as well: Walkway Theatre, Public Arts, Kingston, Galleries, Penola and Millicent and Bordertown. People and their hospitality is an attraction, growing overnight stay and offerings, glamping, luxury accommodation and coastal holidays. SA regional visitor strategy. The visitor spend in the Limestone Coast is around 370 million, as I've already noted. Also priorities for the Limestone Coast: encourage the visitation, focus on overnight stays and longer visits. The interstate visitation is important, encouraging people back to the regions. Need for marketing and also quality offerings. And so in turn, also trying to capture again the overseas travel spend. That sort of sums it up, but nothing probably sums it up more than, and has been highlighted, and what the border closures were for the Limestone Coast, not just on a tourist sector, but for a family sector, education, work, investment, and obviously then the tourist sector. And this somehow needs to be, it needs to recover, and it needs to build confidence, and we need to be back on the radar like we were before these borders were closed. And that is not going to be an easy task, but there's my 3 minutes, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. And that certainly, as we said earlier, a lot of common themes came through, but particularly for the border community, that challenge of connecting both from a demand point of view and from an access point of view between Adelaide and Melbourne. It's really important. So next speaker to bring into the conversation is the Honourable Zoe Beddison, Shadow Minister for Tourism, is here in her capacity as that today. She was elected to the South Australian Parliament as the member for Ramsay in 2012. Born in Whyalla, Zoe's worked for a number of iconic Australian tourism operators and has been a Director of Public Affairs before joining politics. She believes that increased international trade and tourism will bring more jobs and opportunities to South Australia, as you can see from the signage behind her. And we look forward to hearing from her now. Please join me in welcoming Zoe.
Thank you very much, Emily. And can I start by thanking 2KSA and RAA for hosting these events. It's been a fantastic opportunity for us to have more in-depth conversations in all the different regions. Look, I guess when I start and acknowledging Nick McBride and Claire Scriven. Claire's the Shadow Minister for Regional Development. And of course, our Labor candidate there as well, Mark Brays. Wonderful to have him on the Zoom. And also Mayor Erica Vickery. We caught up a little while ago. But wonderful to have your interest in tourism at the forefront. Look, when I talk to people, this wasn't the summer we hoped it would be. I knew before people were hoping that this was going to be a real bounce back for us. But what we've really seen is on continuing uncertainty in the industry. When I talk to different stakeholders, what I hear is there's a lot of last minute booking, a lot of last minute cancellations. They've experienced a lot less day trips that we've been having. For many people, they experienced a very busy Christmas, New Year, 10 days, and then it went incredibly quiet. And when talking to people in the Limestone Coast, that month of the 10th of January, 10th to February was incredibly quiet. Now we're seeing a little bit of positivity. People are seeing a few more bookings in the last week or so. We also know that self-drive is up, so more people are doing caravan and camping than ever before. When I think about this 2 years, how challenging it's been, I think about some of the advocacy that Labor has done. So in June 2020, we called for the tourism vouchers. We'd already seen that the NT and Tasmania had very, very supportive vouchers for both accommodation and experiences. And now we're in round 8 of those tourism vouchers. Now, they're not universally successful for everyone in tourism. And I know that some of the regions haven't really benefited, particularly when you've got $100 for a CBD hotel and only $50 in the region. But what they do is continue to remind South Australians that tourism as an industry, tourism, hospitality and arts have been impacted by COVID and the restrictions around that. Now, the other thing Labor's called for is business support and committed immediate business support that has automatic triggers. While we have seen some government support, it's after very laboured, difficult times. So what we're saying is when you have restrictions that are more than 50%, then there should be a daily payment. And when there's been cancellations of accommodation bed nights, that should trigger an automatic payment. We also called for the extension of the JobKeeper program. We know that for many businesses in South Australia, COVID hasn't been an impact on their business, apart from the initial stage. But for tourism, hospitality and arts, it's been incredibly impactful and continues to be so. And we believe that JobKeeper should have been extended for those industries. Now, we'll be releasing our tourism policy for Labor in the very near future. Our focus will be on building back what's an incredibly important part of our economy. There are about 18,000 businesses involved in tourism and employing, before COVID, 40,000 South Australians. Remembering that the employment in the regions is significant as well. About 42% of people within tourism are employed in the regions. So our focus foremost will be about marketing South Australia as a destination. It'd be about event support and business development. It's going to be an incredibly competitive space, not just with other states, but internationally. And that's going to be even harder for us because of the significant cuts by the Liberal government to the tourism budget. Now, it first started in the end of 2018. I launched my Tourism Equals Jobs slogan because we saw an $11 million cut to the budget. Then the following budget announcing of 12 million of more cuts. So $24 million of cuts. And that's what we're going to face. Even if there's a change of government, what we've got these is built-in cuts to tourism that goes on for the foreseeable future. So we're going to have to turn that around, but it makes it a lot harder for us to be competitive when these are cuts to the budget. Now, look, I've had the opportunity to come down to the Limestone Coast many times, but in July last year, my family and I did an 8-day immersive trip. I really wanted to take in what you had to offer. I caught up with Nick McBride, wonderful to spend time with you in Robe, and I see Brad Scott's on there at Transmutation, and we also went to the Jerky Place in Robe as well. Erica and I caught up, we talked about the opportunities. Narra Court is an area that you have a lot of country sports. They come and play there and they stay and they spend money. I guess I'm also keen to see some more activation with your migrant community who's in Narra Court and the areas. What's their involvement in hospitality, potentially in tourism as well? When I talk to people though, there are similar themes about staff shortages, marketing for the regions, but also looking at increased bookable experiences and paid tourism activities to enhance some of the beautiful natural attractions like the Narra Court Caves. We need reasons for people to stay multiple nights in the region, but it certainly has a great attractiveness. We know there's growth in adventure and wellness tourism, and these are certainly areas that the electorate of MacKillop has enormous potential.
Thank you very much, Zoe. Your children must be better behaved than mine. I managed 3 nights in Robe. I certainly wouldn't go anywhere with them for 8 days. So hats off to you. But we had the most fantastic time in Rome, but it really brought home to me that lack of activation, particularly around the cultural tourism and recognition of traditional owners and the opportunity to certainly tidy up some of the signage. So from a tourism point of view. So Mayor Erica Vickery, please enter the conversation and pop any comments in the chat box, or take yourself off mute, pop your hand up if you'd like to make some comments as well. Really keen to hear from you about your priorities for the region as well. So on that, what I might do is start with some of the first questions that we've received while you think of your questions and comments to pop in the chat or to put your hand up. And I'm going to start with this first question. Nick, I'll bring you back into the conversation first, which was really around honing in on what you see as the real priorities for MacKillop and the Limestone Coast from a tourism point of view. What are the really local specific issues that you want to highlight as priorities?
Okay. So yeah, one of the things that there's a few major impediments that the Limestone Coast and probably all regional South Australia is facing in general. One is there's staffing shortages and finding labour to be able to meet the needs of catering for tourists. It doesn't just mean you need, and you can throw people at it, because the next then point comes up, there's a massive shortage of affordable housing in the regions, and there has been for a while. But the one I'll highlight, which is quite ironical, which just goes to show you that it hasn't been solved for many years, is Bordertown has had the lowest unemployment rate in Australia for a long time, and has had a shortage housing issue for 5 to 10 years, and we still haven't found solutions there. But I've been working with the Regional Development Australia, LGA, Unity Housing, Renewal SA, and NIFIC on the federal front, trying to find solutions over the last 2 years for this issue. There's a fundamental problem with the markets is actually broken in this area for housing and investment, and investors would much sooner invest in the cities because it's safer, and even the finance sector acknowledges this. So moving on to other areas, obviously investment is required into the tourism type area. I mean, the stays, the accommodation, the level, they are all opportunities that you could say perhaps don't meet other areas like the Barossa or McLaren Vale, where I'd have to say we might be lagging. We're catching them. We do have snippets, we have bits and pieces, and these investments are coming. But it certainly is noted that if you travel the Barossa or McLaren Vale, for example, you're not seeing the same sort of investment as what you were seeing down the Limestone Coast. The other one I'd just say is signage is been really well highlighted to me. Yes, we have got signage. Yes, there's been more investment in signage, even by today's standards, e.g. the term of this government invested millions of dollars into signage, but there's more to be done. And one of the things I just sort of highlight with the signage is that, and it's been brought to me on a local basis, that those that have travelled into Western Australia and have seen the way that royalties for regions has worked, and the amount of infrastructure and how modern and well designed it is, we've got a fair amount of catch up to do to meet what they are, where they're at, and how good and big a difference it is between South Australia and Western Australia in that area. So they're just some of the things I'd probably just leave at that and say that, you know, that sort of addresses some of the issues. There was one other point that I want to bring up, that this is local knowledge, and that is that we have tourist businesses that believe that they would like to have more ownership of the money that's spent in the regions, the way that the region's advertised, the way that the money is then spent, and recognising that it hasn't been that easy to work with our region in a collaborative way because of a difference between the coastal side of our region and the let's say the border travel zone, e.g. the Riddoch Highway from Mount Gambier to Bordertown Keith and then onto the Dukes. There is a little bit of a divide there.
Oh, it's frozen momentarily.
It doesn't want to promoting this region more than what perhaps has been done already, or perhaps at a local. Yeah, sorry, right. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about the slight technical glitch there. We missed the very last part of what you were saying, but we certainly got the message around the challenges that are unique to MacKillop. Zoe, can I bring you into that conversation, particularly around the priorities specifically for MacKillop and the Limestone Coast?
Look, definitely staff shortages is something that I've had conversations conversations with many people about. Just recently, when we were in the seat of Hammond, they were shared with me about a collaborative piece that was done when there was some new investment in the region between the upgrade at Monarto, the Bridgeport Hotel, and of course the racing track, where they looked at a one-stop shop for people working in the area. And so they had those three core areas of quite larger recruitment. So they had a bit of a regional focus. They took a lot of young people on who had been long-term unemployed, did some supportive traineeships, but also employed those in the industry. So I think we need to think outside the square about this. I think we need to think from a regional basis rather than, say, just hospitality, tourism, and the agriculture sector, thinking of themselves separately. We need to think of them together. But I'm just going to throw to Claire Scriven, who is a Port Macdonald resident, lives there, and she's been focused on this issue from a regional development point of view.
Thanks very much, Zoe. And what Zoe's saying is absolutely right in terms of needing to collaborate more. And as someone said on the forum yesterday, we talk about collaboration a lot, but don't necessarily actually do it as well as we could. And I think one of the other things is, from a regional development point of view, we're trying to attract people here to live and work, and COVID presents a great opportunity, despite all of the limitations, obviously, that it's had in the last 2 years, in that people want to come from the capital cities potentially to live in areas like ours. Now, the issue, of course, one is housing, but the other is things like transport. Coming from Melbourne, people expect that where they're moving to will have your transport options. And of course, in our region, that's on the whole not the case. So it's some of those foundational things, the accommodation, the transport, and all of those other things that can help overcome the skills shortages and are barriers otherwise for local people to take that work, as well as for us to attract other people. So it's about working across all of those areas as a full regional development approach, so that we can assist all of the industries, including tourism and hospitality, that have got issues with attracting staff and retaining them.
Great, thanks, Glenn. I might see if Mayor Erica Vickery would like to add any reflections or build on anything that was said. Certainly the community tourism is something that has come up strongly through Charles Mountain in our team as one of the areas that we need to focus on and improve. So I'll bring you into the conversation, Erica.
Thank you very much. Listening to, all the comments from all of our speakers, I mean, every single one of those things are very important to us. And I think that that overall livability and increasing that livability in our region is so important. Roads upgrade are so important, not only for road safety, but also for accessibility. And the self-drive holidays to our Limestone Coast region are very important to us. It's the most accessible way to get here and to stay here. So road upgrades that, the RAA have been talking about, I think wholeheartedly agree with and very much support. The ability to get skilled workers, I think, is a real challenge. There has been work sort of done with RDA, Limestone Coast. They're working on some of that. But to really get some skills and courses and things like that on the ground seems to be the most difficult, to get that practical element in it. We talk very much about accessibility to courses, to get people to do those, but I'm not sure how sometimes we bring all that strategic thinking into practicalities. And I think that's the really important part, is to make that happen. Nick certainly spoke about housing, which has been identified as a issue and a challenge for Limestone Coast region for a good number of years. I know Tatiara and Naracoorte-Lucindale Council have been talking about it for at least 5 or 6 years. It is now spread right through regions in South Australia and nationally. And we are still talking about a lot of possibilities, but to get the private industry really engaged and incentivized to take it up is still a challenge. There's a lot of work happening around, and really appreciate that everyone is on board trying to work out how we best do it. But it would be really great to see the practicalities come from all of the strategic thinking.
I think that's a great point. And when we held one of these forums too, the community of Melrose talked about exactly the same issue. So every community that we talk to, so I feel like it's something that TIC SA and RAA can certainly pick up and think about how we can amplify those voices around the collaborative effort and the private investment that's needed. I just want to pick up on the comment that Erica made, particularly around from a skills and development and the sort of capability, micro-credentialing and courses. I know, Sean, was wondering if you wanted to add some comment, because I know that TIC SA has been really committed and looking at how and attempting to build in and grow the capability of the workforce.
Thanks very much, Emily. Yeah, what we're hearing from the tourism industry across the state is there's three key elements to labour. Obviously, there's an immediate skill shortage that we're facing, but medium to long term, it's three elements. The first is careers in tourism. What we've seen through the pandemic is obviously a lot of jobs lost, and our industry has become less desirable for school kids to move into. So there's a piece of work there around careers. Making sure that year 10, 11, 12 high school students and their parents understand what our industry offers and understands that there are great careers to be had. Then there's the skills piece, which we've talked about. Obviously, the government has put a lot of effort into traineeships and apprenticeships as well, which is really important for hospitality. There's more work to be done there, as we appreciate. And the last piece for us is this capability piece. We know that 95% of tourism businesses are SMEs, and those SMEs are interested in capability. They're not so interested in skills. They're more interested in how can I make sure that my social media platforms are generating new business for me? How can I make sure that I'm online bookable? How can I make sure that my customer service is the standard that welcomes my visitors and sees them become repeat customers? Those capabilities need to be delivered through workshop activity. Half day, 2 to 4 hour workshop activity with then potentially some ongoing support afterwards to help businesses implement that the day after they've received some tools and how to actually make those changes in their business. So they're the three key elements that we hear from across the state for industry. It's careers, skills, and capability.
I know that Gina's really passionate about this area too, and feels really fortunate to have actually been able to carve out such a successful long-term career in tourism. So I might see if you want to add anything to that, Gina.
Thanks, Sam. Yes, I think a lot needs to be done from a PR perspective around travel and tourism to make our careers attractive once again. And I certainly think TIC SA have done a fabulous job in building these micro-credential courses to enable that uplifting capability that's short and sharp and easily digestible, that action can be taken on it. I also think get help with the distribution piece. So for most of our tourism operators, we actually have to spend time within the business and serving the people and playing all the roles in the business. But from a distribution piece, there's a lot of help that you can get external. Certainly from an RAA perspective, we have a distribution platform. So you can have your business appear on that platform in an online bookable form. And it means that it's exposure to our 780,000 members, as well as our international market through our international club market. And so within the details that will be supplied afterwards, you'll have contacts that you can get in touch with to find out more information about it. But it rounds out the piece that Sean's saying with building the capability, having online bookable product. And having the people who are employed locally to be able to deliver on the experiences.
In terms of bookable experience as well, Nick, I might bring you into the conversation because something that's come up repeatedly and in two ways really is around how do we build experiences in the region, and that can be around the distribution that Gina talks about where we've got existing experiences and getting people to think and connect with those opportunities, but also developing on the ground where you've got these amazing natural resources for people to go and visit but no opportunity to hand over some coin, if you like, and to build on that. Is there any reflections that you've got around what you think the priorities are and what some of the solutions might be to really building up some of those experiences on the ground?
Thank you, Emily. It's most interesting you say this because one of the things that they say that has not worked well at all in the Limestone Coast is to be able to connect and gel all those experiences that you can get from the northern part of our region. I'm talking from the Coorong to the natural ecosystems up there, all the way down the Limestone Coast through some of the beautiful towns like Robe, Southend to Port Macdonald, then on to Mount Gambier for everything that Mount Gambier represents, and then back up, which way it doesn't matter, up through the border zone, e.g. caves, history, Mary MacKillop, wine and food. And I just say this, that, you know, if someone comes to Robe, for example, which is a tourist mecca for our region, there somehow needs to be a connection there that they can head to Millicent and eat one of the most beautiful eateries in the world at Mayura Station, for example, that they can go over and have some of the best wines in the world at either Coonawarra or Padthaway or any other region, and you know, so forth. And these connections for the tourists are not made easily, and I don't think it's been done well enough to capture the whole region like it should. And I won't go on in because I know I've got lots to get through, but that probably sums it up best, that we need some sort of approach that actually connects all the tourist experiences that can be met or found in our region, and that everyone is fully aware of those when they arrive.
I think Mayura Station, I was lucky enough to go to one of the, on my own coin, not through RAA, for the Mayura Station, the Mayura Station event in the RAA travel sponsored event last year, the Tasting Australia, and it was just incredible. And so you've given me a good reminder. Speaking of events, I know, Zoe, this is something that you're really passionate about too, the role that these types of events can play in marketing and more broadly for the industry. Are there any comments that you'd make in relation to that?
Look, I just don't think Limestone Coast hasn't really been focused on as much as it could, and it has been underdone, and I think we should be very open about that. I mean, it's such a natural, beautiful area, and the connectivity between through the Ocean Road from Victoria is a massive asset that we have, and really needs to be taken more fully about continuing that road trip. We know that Australians are doing road trips more than ever before. We do have quite a few, I think there's about 6 different road trips that we promote, but I do think we probably need to market that a little bit more often. I mean, we just really enjoyed our trip. Of course, we spent a little bit more money in Robe because the Mahalia coffee was there, the jerky place was there. But I really like to see us add on to some of those natural attractions. We talked about the Blue Lake in Mount Gambier. We walked around the lake, but we didn't do anything else other than take the photo. Same with the Narracourt Caves. Of course, we paid to go and have a tour, but we didn't then stay and do any other activities there. We had a cup of coffee, but there weren't any other complementary activities as well. So I do think it needs a lot more focus. I think we need to look at what I call the hero products. The caves are already there, but, you know, it's a place in the world where you feed your cows chocolate. Now, I know that's only one small place at Mayura, but it was something that will stay in people's mind and say, that's unique, we've got to go there. I think the signage will be a big part of that, but I certainly think it's been underdone.
Now I know why my steak was so delicious. Thank you for that tip, Zoe. I'm going to put Coonawarra experiences on the spot because you've just posted a comment there, which I think is really great. I wondered if you wanted to build on that. Hopefully they're not making a cup of tea. Otherwise we'll go further down the list. Did you want? Great, we're off mute.
No, that's fine. It's Simon Mears here, guys, from Coonawarra Experiences. I think we've either know most people on the call or we've certainly met. Hello to everybody and the dignitaries on the call. Yeah, look, I've sat and I've listened to a lot of the comments, and with respect, there's been a lot of chat about what we need to do. But and by way of background, I've only been in the region, but Kerry and I have only been in the region officially for coming up to 5 years. And a lot of this conversation we were hearing prior to the pandemic. So it's obviously a topic that is extremely close to our hearts and of course our business. So we don't tend to make a huge amount of noise about what's going on. We tend to try and focus on the positive. When you talk about collaboration, we have established collaborative partnerships with an incredible number of people in this region, and many are on this Zoom session today. So what we've been calling out for is greater investment into the digital space. There's been some products rolled out, which I don't believe has been rolled out particularly well. I've posted some notes in the chat there. Apologies for any typos, but investment in accommodation and assistance to get accommodation, dining, staffing we know is a problem because it's a global and certainly a domestic problem. It's not isolated to ourselves. Staff are burning out, but businesses are closing and for a couple of days to give their staff a rest. We can't deliver products on those days. So we literally cannot take a sale because of not being able to feed some people. And I'm sorry, I might be rambling a little bit, but it's really, really frustrating when I hear this. I know we're coming up to an election. We've listened to both sides, both Kerry and myself. What we need is, it's great to have these chats. We just need some serious action. We heard about the signage. Signage was another thing. People arrive in Coonawarra, and I'm being Coonawarra-centric because that's where we are. They don't know where the Coonawarra railway siding is. Some of them have been to the region 4 times, and they've never been there until we take them there. It's just appalling. And we've complained, cajoled, pushed SATC, pushed government to try and get some signage, graphical, large colour, bright signage, pushing people into Penola, because Penola's just had the bypass put through in the cover of COVID, so we haven't been able to actually celebrate the fact that our main street can be closed and have festivals. I know we've had a pandemic, but that's what we had planned. That's what we thought as a community and as a business association. We'll celebrate the bypass. We can now shut the street because the trucks and the cars can go around. We'll make Penola a really great destination town. That's been stymied by a pandemic. But now we're starting to come out of that. We need that. We heavily need that investment in the promotion of not only us, the entire region, and pulling each other together. And I won't go on too much longer. But the one other option we have worked with is actually bringing other regions into play. We're about to launch a product that ties in Barossa, Adelaide Hills, Clare Valley, McLaren Vale as a one booking multi-region tour that will spread that tourism dollar and getting people to stay in beds extra nights in each region, not just ourselves. So I'm not being myopic here. Hopefully that comes across. I know I'm talking about Coonawarra and Penola especially, but we've got a huge investment in the region. We're extremely passionate about it. And I'm just hoping that the next time we all meet, whoever's in control and whoever has the power, is actually implementing some of these discussions, topics that we've been talking about. So thank you for letting me have a few words. I do appreciate it.
And thank you for your passion and the points that you've made around collaboration and the work that you're doing. It's fantastic to hear. It does point to, Charles has asked a question in our team just about whether or not rideshare services operate in the region too, because in terms of that ability to go out, and obviously we're talking about some of the dining challenges, etc., that you've got there, but part of that too is people to enjoy a drink and move around. Is there ride sharing in the region at the moment? I'm guessing not. I'm looking at Nick to shake his head or...
No, there isn't.
Not that I'm aware of, sorry, Emily. Yeah, there are tours and there are operators that are acting like as in sort of a taxi type service from Robe to, for example, the Coonawarra, and there'd be no doubt.
We've just dropped out. noting.
Fragmented, easy to find for tourists.
Yep.
Blocked out, I can.
Right. No, we heard
Yeah,
you.
sorry. Sorry, Emily, I just dropped out. I just say that the ride sharing and travel type arrangements in the region are quite fragmented. They're seasonal, and I don't think that they're that easy to find for tourists generally. They could be easier, and that's please not derogatory to anyone who's operating that sphere. I just know that tourists that are coming over and would like to find transport options, it's not that clear, or the clarity's poor.
Yes. One of the questions we also had, and I think that the comment previously tied into that as well, which was that we'd had a lot of questions around when the region could have a long-term cohesive regional tourism plan, that any of the sort of investment to date had been sort of sporadic and driven by politics, and it was not helpful. So is there any further comment that you'd make, Nick and Sean, at your end around the importance of what the opportunity is for that more cohesive plan?
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, I think it might be a good one to throw to Biddy as well. Obviously, the region, through the Local Government Association, does have a strong framework, from what I understand. 24 tourism associations. They have a clear 5-point plan, and I'm sure many of the points that are being discussed today are in that plan, and I'm sure particularly through Biddy and local government, there are a lot of efforts being made, and maybe if Biddy's there, can I ask you, Biddy, for probably a better comment than I'll be able to provide?
There we go. Now we can see you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and I acknowledge that Sue Will is on the call, and I saw you shake your head, Sue, when this question came up. So, and I do want to acknowledge all of the industry that have given up their time today to join this discussion. We do have a plan. We've built it over the last 2 years, and fortunately or unfortunately, we have been able to place a COVID lens around that plan. So when it's been developed, it has factored in, major disruption and any other potential disruptions. But we did consult quite heavily with, over 800 tourism operators in the region. We did go out to our 24 tourism groups, and we do have great support from our 7 councils. In fact, incredible support in terms of financial and in kind. The plan itself does have 5 key themes, and they have been discussed here today. So I'll just quickly outline those. And that is the number one priority for our region is consumer direct marketing, and we need to up our game in that space. Experience development, it's been discussed heavily today. Collaborative visitor servicing. Now, this is not the visitor centres, it does include them, but it's about all of us doing our part to increase the visitor experience when they are here, and how we can go about that. So, and I did mention, and I know Claire touched on it earlier, that we do talk about collaboration, but now's the time to actually collaborate, and the plan actually steps out how we can do that. Events are really important for our region, especially to try and create that immediate reason to come to our region rather than one day, and push us up the list for a visit. And then, of course, our region is so unique around that border. And so cross-border marketing is a huge opportunity. And that includes places like the Great Ocean Road Tourism, leveraging their impact in the international space. The Glenelg Shire, the Grampians, the Wimmera Mallee as well. So making sure that we're really talking about the customer journey and how we can leverage that and increase stay and expenditure in our region. I think we've still got a lot of work to do in how we bring everybody together to play their role, and that's the work we're trying to concentrate on now, hopefully now that recovery mode is in place.
That's great. Thank you, Biddy. It was a really great wrap up of some of those challenges and opportunities and the work that you've done to progress that. I can see some really great comments coming through in the chat. One in particular, Anita, I don't know if you're keen to sort of reinforce and talk to that, because that's definitely within the REA wheelhouse, to use a cliche, and something that we'd be really keen to support you on around the signage for Mount Benson. If you're happy to come off mute, Anita.
Yeah, I don't know how good this will be, because I'm also in the middle of a power failure, which is another problem we've been having a lot. So I'm working off of my phone reception, which is also not brilliant. Yeah, we've been trying to get we had a regional signage for the Mount Benson wine region that was blown away in a storm in 2018. Ever since, it took me a year to get to the right person in the Department of Transport to get signs. And then with the pandemic and everything coming into play, I had other stuff to do that was more important and didn't have enough time to keep on them. But it's been really frustrating. And I know Biddy had a lot of problems with the sort of South Australian Tourism Commission style signage around the region as well, which probably took her 4 to 5 years. There is no reason why it should take 4 years for a government department to come back to somebody and say, you may have a sign. I understand that artwork needs to be approved, and I understand that they want to relook at the signage framework because it's not frangible enough. I understand that there's a lot of things, but to the last communication I had with Robert, who's really cool and I really like him, he's a nice bloke, he's doing his best, but we've got no people to help us do this. They just, like it took us, like the last time I spoke to him, they had lost the work and that he was going to get back in touch with me. He still hasn't got back in touch with me. And so I'm the one that's having to drive this back to people whose job it is to facilitate this. And I'm doing this on behalf of the Mount Benson Wine Association. I'm not, it's welcome signage. But if we can't even get basic road signage, how are they going to expect us to be able to put together a trail that joins the two sides of this region? We have, we do have a sort of multifaceted region, and it's a big region. We're 20% of South Australia, and we're being asked to look at ourselves as the same size as the Barossa, which is not 20% of South Australia. And I think that being 20% of the landmass, we should get a little bit more help, which would be really handy. So, and I mean, there's plenty of other things that I could talk about. We hear a lot about, and as a proud coast part of the Limestone Coast person, we hear a lot about, road infrastructure works for the Riddick and the Dukes and the border side highways. We don't hear a lot about the Coorong roads. And I know that there is a lot of people that choose not to drive the Coorong road, which does not help us form a nice loop drive either. I also said before there was a rollout of something that was like the Southern Oceans Trail that happened years ago that was probably one of the most used. These little blue lollipops went up. We didn't know what it was. There was a map that included some people, but not others. And you see these big signs, say in McLaren Vale, that they have their loop road or they have their tourist drive that is promoted. And we've got signage that promotes it, but nothing to support the rest of it. Oh, I think I've got power. That's pretty exciting.
We heard the beep. You're still very clear,
yeah,
so that's good.
Yeah, so I'm going to come off mute and go and undo my generator. Right, thanks for listening.
Thank you for sharing. Charles, we're almost out of time, but I think on that final infrastructure piece and the criticality of those safe roads as well as the signage, is there anything you want to talk to specifically in relation to the work that we're doing to lobby in that space?
Yes, there's a couple of things I'd just like to quickly comment on. Firstly, about the time it takes to get signage replaced or installed. If you're having problems, please contact us directly. We've got something called the Reporter Road Service, but we work very closely with the department in terms of road signage generally, so we can perhaps help expedite that process and save you having to trawl through who you need to speak to. But importantly, we can keep following up with them as well. So that's just please bear that in mind. In terms of the roads here, we spent a lot of time on the Limestone Coast. We did a comprehensive regional road assessment back in 2019. In fact, we're heading down through the Princess, Riddock and Dukes Highway at the end of this month to do another road assessment. The Princess Highway has been the subject of a lot of complaints and criticism. There's been some money allocated, and obviously we're very keen to see this is spent in the right spot to ensure that it delivers the sort of driving experience people have a right to expect down through there. So there's also a lot of other roads we're touching upon, such as Clay Wells Road is one, Narrow Court Road, Kangaroo Flat. They're all roads that have been identified. There's obviously also been some discussions about a more appropriate speed limit through the Coonawarra wine region area there to make it easier for tourists to slow down and gain access to that area too. So there's lots of elements that we're still following up on and will continue to do so. Thanks.
Thank you, Charles. We're happy to help and lean into that issue. Sean.
Charles, best way to contact you? Email, phone, through someone else? Can you give us your details or put them in the chat, please?
Yes, I'll do that. Basically all of the above, but yes, I'll put that in for you.
Great, thank you.
We try and close these meetings on time too, because we know that people have got busy days, but just any final comments? So is there anything you'd like to sort of finish off with before we close out? And I'll offer Nick the same opportunity.
Just to say thank you for taking the time to come and talk about tourism. For many of you, I know you've had to pivot. It's a very challenging 2 years. I look forward to continuing to working with you as we build back to where we were before and further, I hope.
Thank you. We'll come back to Sean and Nick. Nick.
Thank you, Emily. I think what we've just heard and to note is there's two fronts. One is I believe we do have a government that understands tourism. I think that they're putting monies into areas that it is required. For example, trainees, the labour skill shortage and the like. We are going to need a recovery type process after COVID. The sector has been battered and bruised, and it does need to recover, and it needs to be recognised, and it probably then needs even further enhancement for that recovery. We've also heard how the sector, the region, Limestone Coast is fragmented. This is not a new discovery. It's been something that's probably inhibited us rather than helped us. And we all need to pull together to make the whole region flourish, because it is a very, very dynamic region, and it should be also a whole lot more prosperous than what it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much. With that, we're just over time. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you for those great wrap-up comments. A huge thank you for everyone who shared your comments on chat. Really insightful observations and really actionable intelligence for us to think about how and some immediate actions for us to take in the short term, as well as start to work with you in that longer term and see what support that we can provide. You couldn't get two more passionate advocates for the industry than TIC SA and RAA, which is why we've really rolled out the Why Tourism Matters in the regions, particularly with that focus in the lead up to the election. All of our speakers are happy for you to contact. We will share Charles' contacts in particular as well. And of course, we'll be sending a short survey to get your views today via email so that we can develop the types of content that really engage with you, and obviously, hopefully, networking opportunities and chance to come and experience the region together in person next time. Thank you again. Have a wonderful day. Please continue to share your views, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.